Okay, so what I did, this was kind of an odd webinar. We haven't done one like this before. And so what I did, we asked y'all if you had any questions and to send them in, because then we would answer them. And we didn't get a very good response. In fact, we got 0 questions. So I came up with my own. And so these are, what you're going to hear are, I guess I'll list them and I'll go over them. But these are some of the things we cover in the advanced class. So one of the topics is, what if my ECM is to switch from electric to gas heating? How do you do this in Metrix? It's not something, let's say, all of you are going to ask, but it's actually probably a pretty good question, I think. So that's why I'm doing it. Okay, second topic is I wanted to go over how to handle a meter that has 2 utilities. One provides, so one is like provides like commodity, so that might be like you know, a gas provider, someone who provides natural gas, and then the second one is the utility that actually owns the pipeline. Or it could be electricity, where one provides the electricity and the second one owns the transmission line. So one is the supplier, I don't know if that's the right word, and the other does transmission. Next topic, this one's a really quick one. I just wanted to show you something that some of you probably didn't know, and that is how to drag and drop between projects. And maybe by just even saying that, you already know how to do it, but we'll give it a shot. I'll show you. I wanted to show you one report that I don't think is used enough, and that's the time across items report. I think after you see me use it and look at what it can do, you'll probably be using it more. And then I also wanted to go over a few new features in Metrix. So we got another version coming out. We already did a release, I think it was in February or something. We did a release this year. We got another one. I'm not completely satisfied with what we have. So let's see, this is October. So my guess is it might come out in November. That's my hope. So there's a couple new things in here and a few little tiny, you know, a few cosmetic changes we've made as well. And then finally, I'll go over a little bit on Option C, which is another software that we have, which does M&V. So the first one was this one, and this was a good one. So if you let's say you go to a building and they've got electric heating and electricity is expensive, and you switch them over to natural gas, or maybe they were on propane heating and propane was expensive and you switch them to natural gas or something like that. How do you really handle this in Metrix? And this is a good question that requires a little thinking. So the first part is we have 2 meters, right? An electric meter and a gas meter. Before I even answer this, I want you guys to think about it. Just think about it. And I'm going to stop talking for all of like 20 seconds. But think about, how would you do this? I mean, how would you handle baseline for electricity and for gas? This is what I would do. For the baseline, I would use the 12 bills. So the 12 free retrofit bills. So that's easy. And then for the gas meter, what would I use for the baseline? Now that's the big question people sometimes have. If you really think about it, I think if I gave you enough time to think about it, you might have come upon this answer or figured it out yourself without me telling you. But for the gas meter, the baseline should be 0. It would be 0. And I'll show you how to do that. So the way to set your baseline to 0 is I go into the tuning and I'm going to, you don't need to select 12 bills. You can select 2 bills. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is you set the fit to 0. So I click on that and see it says regression equation, therms equals 0. That's my baseline, 0. It doesn't matter what the weather is. The baseline is 0. Okay? And does that make sense? Yes. So I used to use whatever the electric was. I used to not use gas. And then my actual, that's the post-retrofit usage, would be 0. And then my post-retrofit usage here is my actual bills. And that's it. That's how you do it. So some people don't like this because if they do the reports on a meter level, they're going to see baseline is, and they're going to have all these dollars and kilowatt hours and all of this stuff, and then the actual is all going to be zeros, and they're like, that's not right. But it really is. And then the baseline for the gas was 0, and the actual really was the bills. And so if you look at this from a site or area level, and do a report on dollars, or you can do on equivalent BTUs, then you would actually see the savings. So my second topic was distribution and supply. So we've made a few changes. We tried to address this a few times in Metrix, and I think we bumbled at first, and I think now it's looking much better. So I'll just do it this way, or I'll just call it, we'll call this complicated meter. Okay, so I add a meter, and I'll import. Okay, so now I have all kinds of data in here. Now, sometimes what happens is you're going to end up with 2 utilities. So we're doing electric here, so this might be like a deregulated state like Texas or something. And your local utility, maybe you're in Houston, so that might be center point. Your local utility, you have to pay them for distribution. And then you pay another utility for the kilowatt hours. And so there's actually, for some of you this is new, for some of you this is not. So let me just write down the different options here. So sometimes you're going to have the same number of kilowatt hours. I think this is true for distribution. So that would be for the company that owns the transmission poles and the wires and all that. So sometimes you have the same number for that, and for supply or commodities, another word for that. Sometimes it's the same number, and sometimes you have different numbers for supply and commodity. Certainly for natural gas, it's always, or at least in my experience, it's always different, but I'm sure there's cases where they're the same. So why are they different? I don't know. I guess you can say it's line losses. I don't know what they call it in electricity, but in natural gas, they would call it shrinkage. So someone supplied this many therms of gas, but only 98.9% made it to you because the rest leaked out or something or other, and that's what they call shrinkage. So sometimes you have the same numbers, sometimes you have different numbers, but that's okay, and we're going to handle that easily. But sometimes you have the same dates, and sometimes you have different dates, and that's more of a problem. We'll deal with this one last, okay? But first, let's assume we have the same dates, and then we can talk about the same and different numbers, okay? So in here, in Metrix, what you would do is that we added this recently. It says, do you get separate bills for commodity and distributions, okay? If you do, you would click yes. I tried to make this simpler so it makes more sense. And it adds this commodity, I guess you would call that, I don't know what you call it, but it adds this. And you can add a column for that. That's what that is. And you probably have a cost associated with it. Now, if your usage is exactly the same, then what you might do is just copy all of this. So copy it, and then you can just paste it over into Metrix, or paste it over in that last column. Okay. So I just did a Control-C and a Control-V to copy and paste. Or maybe what I might do is actually, in real life, maybe I would just paste it here, and then I might, let me go back. So this was commodity. So if the commodity, it's not the case, but let's pretend for some reason the commodity always was a certain amount. Like it's not going to be 10 cents, but let's say it was 10 cents times this. Maybe you have, the cost numbers here. So this is the costs. Then you can just paste those into. Let's go back to here and paste those in. So now what I've got is I have usage, and so this is, this one is the consumption. So this is what you use, and then this is the commodity. This is how much the other utility supplied. Here they're the same number, but maybe in reality they're going to be a different number, so we can do that and make them different numbers. So let's just do that. Equals this times, how about I'll just do this, times 99%. And so we'll take those numbers, copy, and I'll paste those ones in here. Okay, so now I have different usage. Okay, so that works. Okay, so I have costs and usage. Now, let me think for a sec. Now, how does this work with tuning? Well, when you tune, you'll see that we have demand and energy, but I don't have commodity or supply. Let me go back here. So this is how much you use, so that's consumption, I'm sorry. And then commodities here. You don't tune for consumption, okay? You would think there'd be a checkbox so you can tune for that as well. We don't have it. So what we do is, you'll tune for your energy, whatever it is, whatever your tuning is. And so there's my tuning. And then what Metrix will do is it will figure out, okay, what's the ratio of this to this? Apparently, in our case, it was always 99.5% of this was 99.5% of this. It's usually not that case. It's usually different every time. But for each bill in your tuning period, it'll figure out what is the ratio. Well, the ratio was, in this case, 99.5. Maybe this one was 99.8. This one's 99.7. And so when you get to, when Metrix is doing baseline, so, it's doing reports and figuring out, okay, how much is my baseline? Let me back up. So we're down here. Good, we're down at the end. So this is in the performance period. And Metrix will calculate a baseline amount based on that regression equation, right? And then it will figure out, okay, well, what do I use for commodity? How many kilowatt hours here? Because we didn't tune this. Well, it takes that, whatever the baseline equation said, and it takes that a ratio that we had for that month from the base year of that month. Gosh, I hope that makes sense. So let me say it one other time. So if let's say this was one of my, let's say this was a month in the tuning period here, and it found the ratio was 99.5% of this. Let me say it again. The commodity was 99.5% of what they used, okay? Actually, it would have been the other way. It should have been more, but I screwed up. Okay, but the ratio was 99.5% here. Okay, so then what it would do is for that same month, it would use the 99.5%, okay? So it's whatever the fit line thinks multiplied by that ratio, and that's how much the commodity would be for the baseline. I think that makes sense. Got it. Okay, so yeah. Now, when it comes to rates, how do we handle rates when we do this? So let's add a rate. So new rates. First off, something that's really important, if you're going to use a real rate, you need to make it say single utility rate schedule, otherwise it's going to ignore the rate and all these charges. But here, we did it right. So I have consumption here and I have commodity, okay? So I can have charges for consumption, and then I can also have charges down here for the commodity charges. So the next topic was dragging and dropping projects. So let's try that. So you might have a few Metrix projects open. Let's say I wanted to add one of these meters to this project. The question is, can I do it? And the answer is yes. So I'm going to do it by putting these side by side somehow. Actually, I'll just move the whole site over. Why don't I try that? So I'll just take this site. I'll drag that over, and you just got to drag it to the parent level, right? One level above. I can't drag a site to an area, but I can drag it to a level above, and then it will drag it over. Okay. You can do the same with meters, with anything actually. So just find a meter. I'll drag this meter over and put it in this site right there, or in that area right there. Okay. So that was a little trick. It's something that a lot of folks don't know, and sometimes it's very useful. I guess a case where it might be useful is, what if I have this big project, but I just want to look at these 2 meters because something's a little funny about it, and I want to poke around with it. I want to make reports and all this stuff, and I don't want all these other meters here, and I want to experiment, and I don't want to screw my main report up. I just want to mess with these 2 meters. you might do that. You just make a new project and drag these 2 meters to the new project, and then you can, play with them all you want. So that was the idea. So drag this over to there. Okay, next topic is time across items report. This is a report that I think is fantastic, and folks don't use it much. I'm going to show you one right here. So a long time ago, in 2006, it's like 12 years ago, we used to do reports for one of the ESCOs, and we did, so here you can see I'm doing calculations on this, but usually we didn't, well, we'll just leave that alone. But we used to do reports for all the circuit cities in the country. We did all the Staples in the country, all the Staples stores. We did Tractor Supply, Linens and Things, and a few other, we did Office Max. It's kind of funny because most of the businesses we were reporting on all went under. But that aside, if we made this is a really cool report. So what this is showing is all the different stores, and I'm looking at the total savings per month per store. And check this out. So I'll show you how to make this report, but I want you to see what you can do once you have the report. If I go to, I think, home, they've changed everything here. Oh gosh, now I don't know how to use Excel anymore. Oh, there it is, conditional formatting. You can do this conditional formatting, and then you can, well, I thought I would be able to identify, that didn't work. Let me try it again. You can identify, stores that really, let's say stand out. But apparently nothing seems to stand out here. Let's try it again. Take all these to there, down, down. That's got to be enough. So you can do conditional formatting, like I said, and then it's just a quick visual way to see. This isn't looking very good to me. You can see it's just a little bit greener or more redder than usual, but let me try a different one. Let's try, see, basis by therm, therms by site, dollars. We'll try one more. I think there's got to be a good one. Tornado, let's look at this one. So this is looking at kilowatt hours. Oh, this is baseline kilowatt hours. This is base minus actual kilowatt hours. I don't want totals. So conditional formatting. Try it again. Color scales. That's what I wanted to see. So it's an easy way if you have like a school district or a really big project to see, where are outliers, or or in general what meters are doing well and which are not. Like this meter here apparently is a real problem. They're not saving energy, they're using a lot more. I better go check out what's going on. And then this one right here, they really weren't saving a lot, but then somehow they cleaned up their act. I don't know what happened. Okay, so that's kind of a neat report. I'll show you how to make it, I guess, right now. So to do that report, I already did my, the load data. So I'm just going to do create reports, and I'm going to do a time across items report. So, you can click here to see what it might look like. But see, this is that table. I just don't use the graph. I don't think it's necessary if you've got 200 meters to look at. You just want the table. So that's it. And I'm going to look at base minus actual. So that would be savings. Or I could look at target minus actual, I guess, and that would be how far off are we from the guarantee. But this one I didn't have any measures in there, so I don't have a target. So, and I would look at this I could do it by meter or by site. I guess I'll do it by meter. No, I'm gonna do it by site. Yeah, I'll do it by meter, that's okay. And I'll pick them all, I guess. I'm just gonna pick, actually I'm only gonna pick some. I'll pick all of these too. And I'll pick a handful of these. I'm not gonna pick them all because it would take forever to, not forever, but it'd take longer than I want to run this report. So I just picked a handful, and this will then generate that report. So I'm showing base minus actual. I could do kilowatt hours, but I'm going to do, or equivalent kBTU if I had kilowatt hours in therms. I'll do kilowatt hours, and the dates I want is, I didn't write them down. I think it's 2006. I think that's what I want. And I don't need to break it up by year. And I don't want a chart. Okay, we'll take a look and see what this report looks like. Here we got it. So here I didn't pick all of the meters because I was trying to be fast, so I didn't waste all your time while you were waiting for this to process, but that is showing the savings for all the different meters that I picked per month. So anyway, it's a really good report because it shows a lot of data on one page or one spreadsheet. I'll leave it at that. The other thing I have is in the tuning, I added this tuning statistics. So let's take a look at that, but not with this one. Let me change this to 12 bills and we'll just tune it for cooling only. And it's saying it made this tuning statistics report. Let's take a look at it real quick. So I'm going to tell you it's not done as good as I want it to be done yet, and it will be. But the whole point of this tuning statistics report was I want to see, or what if you wanted to see what all the tunings would, or what the tuning would look like at different balance points. You know, let's just look at them all. So here I have. And right now he's going from 0 to 80. It's not going to go to 0. I'm having to go from 20 to 80. And this heating balance point I have, it's just going to be blank because this is, let me say it differently. This one's only tuning for cooling. That's what the variable set means. It's cooling. And this is saying it's using all bills. Okay, each one of those ones represents a bill. If they would have deselected a bill, one of these ones would turn into a 0 and that would show the deselected bill. Okay, and then you can see the regression equation, and then the coefficients, whatever, the R squared is, I think, in there. Is it? Yeah, R squared, CVRMSE, mean bias error, and then it shows a score. The success means, did it meet my tuning criteria? The tuning criteria is this, right? Projects, tuning requirements, that. Does it meet those requirements? If it does, then it's a successful tuning. And when you press auto tune, what it's going to do is it will look at all the ones that successfully met the criteria and then look at the scores and find the one with the highest score, and that's the one it's going to pick when it auto tunes. Okay. Anyway, so the whole idea of score, I guess, I better explain it. Anyway, it's right now it's not as good as I want it to be, because what I want it to do is, right now actually it looks like it's working, but it's not. I want it to, if it can't find a tuning that's good when all 12 bills are selected, then I want to deselect the first bill and do the last 11, and then put that one back and deselect the second and do the first, and then the third through 12th, etc., and do every combination of one deselected bill, and then two deselected, three deselected, etc. I want to have it do that, but that's only if it doesn't tune with all bills. It will try it with one deselected, and if it still can't be a successful tuning, it'll try 3 deselected, etc. Why is this report of any use? Maybe it's not of any use, but some folks are a little geeky. I get that way from time to time, and you want to know, what would have happened if I tuned it a little different or whatever? And well, here you have all the baselines of all these different balance points. So that was what I have for Metrix. I wanted to show you option C. It's the whole point of option C was we wanted to have something that could do what Metrix did, but doesn't have the limitations of Metrix. Now, let me say this, that I love Metrix. I love it, but there are a couple limitations. Some of you have run into them and they are really annoying. One of them is that it can only handle 244 rows of data. If you've got a project that's over 20 years, or you have 20 years of data in there, you're going to run up to this boundary where you can't put any more data in. That is really a pain. Also, each project of Metrix project can only handle about 200. You can put in 300 meters, but it starts to get slow. And I certainly don't have patience anymore for slow software. I just don't. So this has a database, option C, that doesn't have those problems. Another thing that's great about Metrix is all the reports are in Excel. I love that. But it's also a pain because Microsoft keeps changing Excel or changing libraries, and then there's the 64-bit version and all this other stuff, which makes it very difficult to work with. In fact, one ESCO, they couldn't even use Metrix because they have super strict, rules about macros. They're scared that, for good reason. There's a lot of reasons to be fearful of macros nowadays, but the IT people are scared that it's going to go and compromise their systems. So those are the drawbacks of having an Excel rate engine. So this report doesn't have that, or this option C doesn't have that also. Let me just show you what's involved in making a new project. So it's kind of like Metrix, I guess. I could add new meters, etc., but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do instead is I think I will just import data, and that's right there. So let's see if I can do this. Okay, so I have some bills. I'll just take them all. And let's see, next. And it's found 2 meters, and it's saying new. It's going to make new meters. That's what it's telling me it's going to do. And that's what I want it to do. So it says it worked. I guess I can go look. So I'll go back here, and oh yeah, I have 2 new meters. So I didn't have any meters, and now I do, and I have bill data too. Okay, so that's that. This sounds kind of like Metrix. Okay, so let me also import some weather. So import weather, and see where it has TMY. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm going to just we're going to show you this part that works like Metrix. So this is Fahrenheit weather. Okay, and this is, I think, well, I'm just going to press import. Okay, so I think that worked. So I click OK, and I'll go back to this, and there should be, okay, I don't see weather. I'm going to explain how that works. So I go here and click on weather. This is kind of like a weather view. Okay, this is my weather I just imported. So one of the things in Metrix that was kind of good and bad, I don't know if I have Circuit City open here. I do. So here's a Circuit City project. Every site, well, every different location, let's say, had its own weather value, or let's say every site. Now this made sense with Circuit City because I had, I had sites all over the country. But if you have a school district, it all might have one set of weather data, just one. You don't, but people still might want to have different sites. This site is for this school, this site is for that school, this site's for that school, and then they have to add the weather underneath each site, and it just kind of, you ended up with a project with a lot of stuff in it. What we're doing instead is we're just going to list all the weathers here, and then if you go back to the tree view. Oh, I'm sorry, do it this way. So I go back to the tree view, and then in the site, I believe you can say, yeah, assign Columbus to this one. And so now Columbus is assigned to that site. Okay, so you only have the weather in one location and only one instance of weather. It's the same with rates, which I'm not going to show you because the rate engine's coming in, but well, actually rates is really cool in this software. It's much better than in Metrix. So one of the things that's a little clunky in Metrix is if you had, especially for school districts, if you had a school district and you had, let's pretend these were all in the same location with the same weather, but each site was a different school district and they all had the same utility and they all had the same rate, you would still have to drag the rate to each meter. So it's there, and then you drag it to here, you drag it to the next meter, etc. And that's annoying. What we do instead here is we just put the rate in once in option C, and then what you would do is at the meter level, you would just say this rate is, or this meter is assigned to this rate, and that's it. So you only make the rate once, there's only one copy of the rate, and there's a lot less possibility to make mistakes. And it's also the same with variables. You had to drag that down everywhere. Here you don't, you just assign it. In fact, with variables, you can assign it to the project level, to the site level, the area level, and I think the meter level as well. So it's a lot cleaner that way. The other thing is, so I guess, most people want to look at the tuning, so I'll just do that real quick. So it's a tree view, and if I look at the electric, the tuning is very similar, and let's see, it's 12 bills. Yeah, so it's got an auto tune in there also, and it's real similar. So yeah, so there it is. Okay, the regression equations here, I don't know if we can, yeah, you can copy and paste it now. Good. I don't know if you can copy and paste this yet. You can. That's good too. So this is similar, but what we've added, which is new, and I think that is under options, and that is we have, and this is still being worked on, so the current version doesn't have this yet, but you can do this where you can have two tunings. So you can have one for pre-retrofit and one for post-retrofit. And then if I go back, oh, I forgot to press apply changes, hold on. So click to pre-retrofit, post-retrofit, apply changes, and come here. Okay, and now I have a post-retrofit tuning. Okay, so you're going to tune to the post-retrofit data. So this is right after the installation's done with post-retrofit weather, post-retrofit bills. Now you have two tunings. And then remember when we were looking at weather before, you can import TMY weather. And so then you'll be able to apply both baselines, or let's say both regression equations to that TMY weather. Okay, so that's another way of doing M&V that it might work in some instances. I think some utility programs are more likely to go that way than ESCOs, but who knows. So that's a quick look. I didn't show you reports and other stuff because I know we're running out of time. So we also have this section on charts, where there's just, it's at the meter level, at the area level, the site level, we have charts that might be of value. Well, apparently these ones are missing, but we should have charts here. We used to have charts. I don't know where they are, but we have charts at the site area and project level that sums everything up. And it's just a quick look if you just wanted to look at stuff. So that's what that is. Okay, and then the last part, I guess, is reports. And we have, so we have one in here called Train Report. I'm sorry for the Train people. It's going to get a real name. But for some of you guys who are listening who are not from Train helped me. This is to figure out this report. That's why we got that name. The one I want to show you real quick is the meter detail report. So I'll do that real quick. So yeah, I'll just do them all. So I'll run, this scenario, it means I just wrote a thing for them to fix. It'll say base minus actual or base minus sim actual. You choose whichever one you want. So this is this used to be called the MR1 report from Phaser. We took it from Phaser years ago, put it in Metrix. But this is the MR1, and what I wanted you to see was that this report, and basically all the reports, can be exported to PDFs and Excel. So I'm going to report to Excel real quick and just see what that looks like. And it's that one, save, I know, replace it, and open, yeah. So I think it's opening. Okay. So there it is. So this is the meter detail report. This is interesting. I don't know what this is about, but I'll look at it. Anyway, so there you go. So you can export these reports to Excel, which is good, actually very important. That's it for option C. I'm gonna see if I have any questions left, and we'll go through those. So yeah, Larry asked a question. Actually, I got this question. Who was I talking to? I don't remember. Someone had asked me this, and I ran into that. So, you can have a negative baseline. You don't want a negative baseline, but it is possible to get one. And the question is, will Metrix show negative dollars? It doesn't. It shows $0 if you had a negative baseline. You really shouldn't have a negative baseline. I don't think so. And if you did, it means maybe the report or your Metrix project maybe wasn't tuned that well. But you really want to avoid having a negative baseline. How do you handle a gas meter? Oh, that's a good one. So Frank asked, how do you handle a gas meter that does heating and cooling? That's actually easy, Frank. That would be, here, let me show you. All right, so this is an old project. It's something we go over in intro class. This is an electric meter that does heating and cooling. So in Metrix, and it would be the same in option C, you can look at this meter versus outdoor air temperature, right? So this is saying towards versus outdoor temp. So I have 12 bills, start at 7. I'm looking at outdoor temperature graph, and you'll see that I have two different imaginary lines here. Let me show you what I mean. So one of them is like this. That line means as it gets warmer, they use more, so they're cooling. And this line means as they get colder, they use more, so they're heating. So this is an electric meter that heats and cools, right? Well, you can do a regression for this pretty darn easy, but we have to guess balance points. I don't know what the good balance points would be, but I think it's going to be less than 59 and more than 37. So you just click on both of these, that's all. And so I thought this was 37, I think, and 59. 59. These I'll make both zeros, 0 and 0. And then all I'm going to do is just adjust these balance points until I get something that I like. Okay, that's it. So yes, it does do that. It's not hard at all. That's what Metrix does. And option C does it as well. See if I have any other questions. I don't. That's it. Tyler, can you wrap it up?
That's it. And thank you guys, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we will see you next month.